have a sword or a weapon. So they used a torch and a pot. That were their weapons. Can you imagine? They didn't have swords or bows and arrows or anything to fire into the enemy camp. But at night, while the enemy was sleeping in their camp, they didn't go out with them with weapons of swords and bows and arrows, but they had a torch in a bowl or a pot that they put over their torch. I don't know how that worked, but you know, they had a wooden stick with a torch on the top of it, and then they put a bowl over that, and they snuck down and divided themselves into 3 groups and stuck down around the camp of the Midianites. And Gideon told them to wait, and when they hear the trumpet, they're to break the bowl off of the torch. And that way, all the torches began to show up around the camp. Last night I was on my way home from Williamsburg. We went to the Great Wolf Lodge, had a little family vacation. The kids were off from school, so we went down there. It was a nice time to be with my family. But we were driving home, and I noticed in the Shenandoah Mountains, we were on Route 29, and I noticed over there were lights up the mountainside, and the lights in the trees. There were just a few up there. But can you imagine being in a valley, and the camp would be so close, but look and see all the lights? It would be so obvious. You might see a light on the side of the mountain way far away, and you have to drive closer to see what it's all about. And in Gideon's time, with the 300 men stretched around the camp, and Gideon blew his trumpet, and they broke, their torches began to shine in the night. It says, "Arise, go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hands." This is what the Lord told Gideon. He promised. He entrusted him with the blessing. He had already given him many blessings. And Gideon trusted in the Lord. So he blew the trumpet, and the soldiers all broke the bowls that were on top of their torches. And the torches gave a lot of light. At the Christmas Eve service, where everybody had a candle and we held it all up, it was so beautiful around the auditorium to see all the lights, the candles that were being held up. And that was just a small candle. Can you imagine what a large torch would look like? And they, as the trumpet blew and they broke their bowls and the torches began to light and they were yelling, the Midianites became so afraid. They woke up out of their sleep and they didn't know what to do. They weren't totally awake and alert yet. You know, they might have had a little bit to drink the night before. You know, soldiers in a camp tend to have a lot to drink, and then they go to sleep. They're all groggy, and when they wake up, they're not fully aware of what's going on. And it wasn't even towards dawn. It was in the middle of the night. And there was only a few lights left in the camp, but they heard all this loud noise, and they saw all the lights on the mountainside around them. And they became so distracted that they began killing each other. The Midianites killed their fellow soldiers. Gideon and his soldiers, remember, they had no swords or anything. They did not have to kill anybody. They just shouted and screamed and blew the trumpet and held the torches up, and the Midianites defeated themselves. And the king fled, and Gideon and his soldiers chased him and, of course, won the victory. Remember, the odds are 12 to 1. everybody would think that's impossible. If you're a person that says that's impossible, you're one of the group of 22,000 that were sent home. You're not ready or not prepared for the fight. And you'd be like the 10,000 that were sent home at the last, and you down to the last 300. Are you part of the 300? Are you the majority or the minority? Are you in the minority with the 300, or are you in the majority of the 22,000 people that went home? Do you prefer to be with a small number of people that are doing the right thing, or with the majority of people? One man and God is a majority. It changes the odds. It doesn't matter how large of a number of people are in the other group. If you're with God, you're in the majority. And God doesn't care about the numbers. It doesn't matter if you have a church that has thousands of members or if you have a small group. The number of people involved in serving God, maybe it's misunderstood a little bit. Maybe the people are there for the wrong reason. But God can use a small number of people. In Luke chapter 12, verse 31 and 32, it says, "Don't be afraid, little flock." I mean, small group. For your Father has chosen gladly to give you the kingdom. Jesus did not set up an earthly army with millions of soldiers in it. Jesus' kingdom will started out small, but it will become a huge kingdom across the world. God had a purpose for the few that were chosen. God is not necessarily interested in the expert and the person with all the knowledge. God uses weak people, the least in the kingdom, the least in the tribe. God searches out these people. Jesse, the father of David, brought forth the sons that were tall and strong and good soldiers. And Samuel the prophet looked at all of them and said, "Nope, that's not him." And he went through all of his sons, one after the other. And each one was rejected, right down the line. And Samuel asked Jesse if he had another son. He said, "Yeah, there's the young son who's out watching the sheep, but he's just a little kid." And Samuel asked to be led to him. And when he saw him, he said, "That is the one." And Jesse could not believe that David, the youngest boy, there with his slingshot, playing with his slingshot and his rocks, he couldn't believe that this would be the one picked to be king. But through God's leading, the smallest, the least, became the important one. God won the victory. Last week we discussed God doesn't want someone with a big head, to think, okay, we have the same number as the enemy and we won. And then the people would say that they had won the victory themselves. But God wanted a fewer number of people so that people would know that God had won the victory. There's a few points I'd like to give. Don't be afraid to be in the minority if that's what it takes to be right with